New York's mayor with an endless supply of communist gimmicks. Let's check it out. Welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. A seemingly endless supply of communist trickery appears to be how Zoran Mamdani intends to run New York City for the next 4 years, and a look at how a lot of these politicians intend to behave if they get elected. This week, Mamdani took some easy bait, decided to harp on ticket prices for the U.S. Open, which has just gotten underway in Queens. The cost of watching this tennis tournament live has gone insane in recent years. Corporate boxes have made it completely unaffordable for the average New York family. It can cost thousands to sit in the nosebleeds for a good match, something that Bill Ackman was harping on about a week ago. Zoran's answer to this problem, though, is his same flawed response to every problem, like high rent and high grocery prices. A politically viable gimmick that'll actually make the problem even worse. Here it is.
998, 999, 1,000. New York, we're dropping 1,000 discounted tickets to the U.S. Open tomorrow at 10 a.m. $100 a pop. First come, first serve. Because tennis should be for everyone.
Oh, okay. So tennis tickets are expensive, so the city is going to take your money and greatly subsidize 1,000 of those tickets, so a lucky few will get a very cheap deal paid for by the rest of you that aren't even going to the tennis tournament. First off, we all know who's actually going to get these tickets, right? These 1,000 tickets. You know who's getting them. Friends, family of the staffers in Zoran's communist government, of course. First come, first serve, he says. Yeah. These tickets have been promised to friends and family of campaign staffers and government workers for weeks now. Additionally, the city buying up 1,000 tickets makes the remaining tickets more expensive for everyone else who wants to actually go, because that's just simple supply and demand. So they're charging people who aren't going to make the tickets cheaper for 1,000 people and also driving up the price for everybody else that's actually going to go and just pay market price. It is a gimmick for Zoran to score political points. He has another boogeyman, a large corporatized New York event that's mostly attended by elites. He loves to harp on things like this. And this gimmick is no different than the others. Mamdani's full embrace of rent control, rent stabilization. The rent's too high, let's cap it for some of you. Sounds great, right? If you have a rent-controlled apartment. But it actually skyrockets the rent price for the rest of us. The millions not under the umbrella of rent control see the prices shoot through the roof. As a viral video this week from a Wall Street Journal reporter perfectly explained.
Can rent control fix the housing crisis? No. The main reason why rents rise is that there aren't enough housing units for the number of people who want to live in a given city. With many people competing for the same apartments, landlords rationally set rents at the highest amount they think someone is willing to pay. Rent control sets a ceiling on how much landlords can charge, but it doesn't solve the underlying housing shortage. It actually makes things worse, because developers don't want to build new units if they think they can be legally prohibited from charging enough to earn back their investment.
Really basic stuff here. Just don't ask the mayor's office about it. If the city didn't have millions of rent-controlled units, rent in New York would be substantially lower for the millions of people that are actually paying market price. And while Zoran and the communists claim that rent control is helping the underprivileged, the Wall Street Journal reported earlier this year that nearly 90,000 rent-controlled apartments are occupied by people making more than $200,000 a year. There you go. Because successful people bribe realtors to get into a rent-controlled apartment. It ain't rocket science. The market will always be smarter than New York's communist gimmick du jour. So Mamdani doubles down. It's not just enough that about half of the city has a rent-controlled apartment. Now he's frozen the rent on those rent-controlled apartments so that they don't go up.
I'm Assemblyman Zoran Mamdani, and I'm running for mayor to freeze the rent for every rent-stabilized tenant.
I'm freezing your rent as the next mayor of New York City.
That was the promise, and it was a promise that he kept. Freezing the rent on the people that already have the cheapest rent, while the rest of us just pay explosively high numbers. So how did this end? Well, that gimmick led to Manhattan seeing its highest rent prices ever. Nearly $7,000 a month to rent in Manhattan for those who don't have a rent-controlled apartment, which is more than half of the people in the city. The rent freeze also exacerbating other issues like the shadow market, of course. empty units that landlords simply won't rent out for these mandated asinine cheap prices as a big middle finger back to City Hall. Oh, I have a rent-controlled apartment, and now you're going to stop me from increasing the rent? So I have to lose money for Zohran Mamdani? Screw you, I'm taking it off the market. Well, that number has never been higher. More than 100,000 units just held off the market. They're not going to rent to people. Why? You forced me to. You can't do it. These are all the early feels of communism. These are the early indicators of when you start playing with these markets and when you start infiltrating it with that ideology. This is how it feels. And it just keeps getting worse. They get a lot in the early years, right? They commandeer all that wealth and things feel really good for a few years while they consolidate power so they can't be removed. And then when it all goes down, you can't get them out of power, and then everything fails. This is why we need an educated electorate in this country. Most Americans are not smart enough to see what is coming if people like Zohran Mamdani are running this country. They're going to get those positive indicators early on, some weird stuff, but it's going to feel good for a minute, and then you can't get rid of these people. Most Americans are simply captivated by the dancing clown, promising to make life affordable as he has, with his gimmicky videos, using plans that'll actually do exactly the opposite, but it takes a couple years for that to happen. In the short term, they get a lot of big scores, like telling you the rent's frozen. Sounds great, right? Mamdani's city-subsidized grocery store is already getting a reality check, and the first one is not even going to open for years, and we're already seeing this. One of the women in charge of this brilliant plan admitting that they're going to have to subsidize bodegas that are anywhere near their arbitrarily cheap stores, city-subsidized stores, so that they don't put those bodegas right out of business.
I think we're, as an agency looking at a number of different complementary, policies and programs, grants, incentives that can come alongside these grocery stores to support other, local independent businesses that are in the neighborhoods.
Yeah. Shaved head, 30-year-old chick. She should be running the government. I trust her. So now the bodegas and stores that are near the city-subsidized grocery stores have to be subsidized as well. Oh, okay. Well, how about the stores that are just a half a mile from those stores? Because now you're subsidizing the next layer. So now they're getting an unfair advantage against the stores that compete with them. Do you see what happens when you implement foolish gimmickry on an established capitalist system? You see the disaster that this is creating in so many different ways as New York becomes an experiment for, right here, this guy. This is what millions of Americans are voting for right now throughout this country. They're voting for this guy in his different forms. We have one in Seattle. We have them running in Florida. We have them running in Michigan. A contingent of fools promising nonsensical plans like these, spoiled babies like Zohran Mamdani who think they are smarter than the system that has created the bulk of the wealth on this planet. Vickie Paladino, New York City Councilwoman, joins us now. Ari Rastegar, real estate investor and CEO of Rastegar Capital. Good to have you guys here. Vickie, so much gimmickry in this new administration. Even his balanced budget, we should report, was a gimmick as well, just stealing state funds and acting like he closed a budget hole. Talk about this.
First of all, you nailed it in your opening. You hit every nail on the head. This is a gimmick. He is a dancing clown. When he talks about, for example, the free tennis tickets, the lottery, you nailed it. This is just playing to his base, his funny, he thinks TikTok videos, again, playing to his base. If he really wanted to do this the right way, he would actually be going into the poorer neighborhoods and offering them, do a means testing, and actually give these tickets away to people who genuinely cannot afford it. Look at his other buddy there, who has his $1.5 million townhouse built by daddy, spoiled rich kids running this city. This is an absolute travesty that we are watching unfold. The rent freezes is impossible. We watched the Bronx burn back in the 80s. Yeah. They didn't burn down for no reason at all. They burned down because the landlords could no longer afford to keep the housing. Yeah. Rent freezes do not work. We're being pushed into into a corner here, and it's a corner that we need to, again, you hammered it home, educate the people.
Yeah.
All these people need to be educated on exactly what is going on here.
Right. Ari, the funniest part about the rent control and the rent freeze, the wealthiest renters in New York are the ones that get the largest discounts from rent stabilization and rent freezing. People that have rent control on more expensive apartments are getting a 36% discount. The people on the low end, the people that Mamdani claims to be saving, only get about a 15% discount. But forget about that for a second. To the more broad issue of trying to rent control a city out of expensive rent. How foolish is this?
Well, I mean, the math doesn't actually pencil. So if you look at what they're doing with the bodegas as an example, if you go 5 years in the future and say a bodega's competitor has lowered costs by 30%, these bodegas are operating on 1% to 2% margins. So all of a sudden you spend $70 million in a city of 8 million that's operating at a $600 million deficit. How are you supposed to scale that? Because over 5 years, the bodegas across the street are going to go out of business. Their employers are not going to be able to pay their employees. They're not going to be able to pay their taxes. So the simple plan structurally actually causes the city more pain.
It's amazing that it's pretty fundamentally basic stuff. But again, they depend on an electorate that has no clue. They depend on an electorate of people that are just like Zoran Mamdani, kids that have never worked, people that don't understand how the system functions. And then they can make things worse while telling you they're making it better. Vickie, you've got the immigrant grocers and bodega owners that Mamdani is about to just wipe out, suing him over this plan. I mean, these are the people that he's claiming, his supporters. He's about to wipe them out, and they're suing him over the grocery plan.
We did a press conference. I was not able to attend the press conference, but I gave a very, very strong statement. And the strong statement is this, that, like you just said, these are immigrants who came here, started from the ground up, pursued the American dream. Right. And these are the very people who he's going to put out of business. Our grocery stores are not broke. Our situation is not dire. We don't have starving New Yorkers on our streets. Let's get this very, very clear. There are debit cards. There is welfare. There is every food pantries. There are every means for New Yorkers to be able to survive. We don't have starving New Yorkers, everybody. Everybody makes it think like we do.
But they count on that.
What's that?
They count on people believing these stories that this is such a horrible system that must be saved.
If you want to be poor, the best place to be poor is New York City. Yeah. Because New York City subsidizes you in every way, shape, or form. Bounce back to the bodega owners. Bounce back to the grocery store owners. This $30 million number, $70 million number is a fallacy, okay? Because they're going to build this up from the ground up. They're not taking vacant buildings. This is going to end up costing the city over $150 million. Right. But more than that, cost people their livelihood. This is absolutely, this is what he's supposed to be in favor of. This is so bad on so many levels.
I hear you. I hear you. Vickie Paladino, Councilwoman, good to see you. Ari Rastegar, good to see you. Thanks, guys. We appreciate it. Moving along here tonight, the CIA Director John Ratcliffe taking a clandestine, unannounced trip to Moscow that set off all sorts of alarms. The trip, the first known visit by a U.S. spy chief since 2021, comes amid intelligence reports that Vladimir Putin might test NATO's strength with an attack on an allied NATO country as early as the fall. So yes, him going to Russia is very interesting. A U.S. military transport plane was seen landing at a Russian airport with a U.S. diplomatic motorcade. Ratcliffe was on the ground in Moscow for less than 8 hours, came right back. The Kremlin today telling reporters that Ratcliffe met with members of Russian intelligence services but did not meet with their president, Vladimir Putin. Our president was asked about all of this morning.
He's there on, very sort of semi-routine. I hate to disappoint people. We would like to see the war with Ukraine end. John Ratcliffe is a fantastic guy. He's the head of the CIA, and he is not in there for any of the things that you said. Now, something may come out, out of it. We're working very hard to get that war ended. And frankly, they both want to see it ended.
Okay. A few hours after that comment, Ratcliffe was spotted leaving the White House alongside the War Secretary Pete Hegseth and General Raising Kane as well. Blaine Holt, retired Air Force Brigadier General, back with us tonight. Always love your perspective in moments like this. Blaine, what do you make of this? It seems like the president's definitely downplaying it.
Yeah, whatever you've heard from anybody, including the president, we don't know what happened there in Moscow. Yeah. And I certainly wouldn't be looking to the headlines in that paper to go ahead and find out what happened. I used to fly these missions in C-17s with the director on board, and I can promise you, if I wanted to do that invisibly and I wanted nobody to ever to see where we were or what was happening, then that would happen that way. And instead, we've got visuals. There's the C-17. Everybody can see him there, sending a big message. Who's the message to? Well, I know the message is going to Europe because the president wants this war done. They are exchanging information that can only be exchanged face to face. That means zero leaks. That means very frustrated newspapers with really nothing to go on. They're not in the room and they're not going to get to know what's going on. What I find interesting is the coincidence of Foreign Minister Lavrov meeting the Foreign Minister of the Vatican. I find those things are not that much of a coincidence.
Lavrov meeting the Foreign Minister of the Vatican. What do you make of the speculation that Putin was about to make a big move potentially against NATO or a much larger invasion of Ukraine that could spill over into something bigger?
No, nonsense. No. Look, if the Russians had that on their agenda, they would have put that on the pickle card 3 years ago. That is not how you fight a war. That's not how you escalate.
That wouldn't be probably the smartest move for Vladimir Putin. I want to talk about Iran for a second. Their alleged supreme leader, who many say is the gay son, Mojtaba Khomeini, might be dead, is what the Atlantic is potentially reporting, that nobody's seen him. His close friends, relatives have not seen him. Fewer than 5 people have met with him since his ascent to power after his father was killed. Speak to that and your thoughts more broadly on Scott Bessent's plan to starve this regime out of power and finally end this war.
When he said D-Day, he meant it, and that was sending a strong signal. That means conditions are met. Iran, you'll never get a better chance. Go take your country back. You're prepared. You're organized. You have gotten supplies somehow. And Mojtaba is either with us or he's not with us. The one organization that doesn't know either way is the Atlantic. And and what we're doing now is we have got great forensics on who played ball with Iran right up into the 6th month of this war. We're going to a place called Victory. This is a win for the president. It'll make eyeballs bleed all over Washington, D.C. and New York. But this is the way it is, and good days ahead.
Do you think this, and real quickly, do you think that this is a quick and effective method that Treasury is using? Are we gonna squeeze them in a way that they're not expecting?
Yeah, we're going to squeeze them in a way that makes them so vulnerable to their population. Now, you may see a long and messy revolution, but we'll put bombs where they want them. We're just not going to do it with 130,000 forces over 20 years to not a good ending. This will go well.
Interesting. Blaine Holt, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Good to see you.
All right. Major moves being made to lower gas prices as we speak. Next, we look at how quickly oil could drop as the Strait of Hormuz is further marginalized and Iran's control over it further marginalized. The EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin joins us coming up next. Then later in News from the Left, Philly's DA again exposes his pure idiocy. Listen.
And I'm going to have a paperweight sitting on my desk. You know what that paperweight's going to be? It's going to be a piece of the ballroom after we all blow it up.
Federal agencies urge every family to have an emergency radio. During any disaster, electrical power may get cut. The emergency radio gives you the vital information you need. Newsmax wants you to have the Dynamo Emergency Band Radio. It doesn't need batteries and works in any emergencies. It retails for $30. You can get it with the free offer. Call or go online and get the emergency radio today. Your life may depend on it.
My heart has experienced life-changing wins, losses, and countless miles. To keep living at my speed, I trust Cunol CoQ10. CoQ10 is the #1 cardiologist-recommended supplement for heart health. Cunol, the brand I trust.
While this banana may not save you from someone breaking into your home, Berna's banana helped one vet repel an intruder in his.
This huge guy, 6'5", 6'6", just barreled through my front door. I have my Berna and my Glock. I always go for the Berna first. I've seen enough death and destruction to last 2 lifetimes. Here is the perfect item I can have, feel totally safe, and know I'm not going to kill anybody.
At At Berna, we don't sell bananas, we sell peace of mind.
Your home protects what matters most. Now your water can too. Introducing Aquasana Health Shield, whole home filtration that helps reduce 61 contaminants, including PFAS, VOCs, pesticides, and more. Visit healthshield.com today.
Hydration or creatine? Most people think they have to choose, but with Create, you don't. That's because we've combined creatine and electrolytes into one simple on-the-go stick. Get electrolytes to help replenish what you lose through sweat, plus 5 grams of creatine to help support strength, power, and recovery. And with flavors like watermelon, lemon, lime, and passion fruit, this combo has never tasted so good. 2 supplements, 1 stick, one less thing to worry about.
All right, welcome back. Iran's power over the price of oil on this planet and the importance of the Strait of Hormuz is being rapidly marginalized. But right now, as we know, the national price of gas is still pretty high, $4.10 to be exact. The price per barrel for oil is still over $80. The administration says that that's not going to last much longer, and they certainly have incentives to make sure that happens because we have an election coming up here in just a few months. CENTCOM revealing out of our U.S. military, I should say, has aided the passage of 660 million barrels of oil through the Strait of Hormuz since May. So the work's being done. Maritime tracking firm Tanker Trackers reporting busy traffic in the Gulf of Oman today, 25 million barrels of crude oil, plus some refining products. These are numbers that are very close to what this was before the start of the war. The oil originates from almost every country in the region, they say, minus Iran, of course, which is totally frozen off. Trump now says all mines have been removed and or detonated from within the international waters of the Strait of Hormuz, so things are improving. And let's not forget, on top of that, the U.S. is maximizing production here at home. Ships from around the world have rerouted in our direction. Here's the Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, at an oil facility in Texas.
I'm outside of Midland, Texas, in the Permian Basin. You see the oil field workers behind me. Those are the humans that have driven American oil and gas production to an all-time high, made the United States the largest producer of oil and gas in the world instead of the largest importer of oil and gas in the world. It's the hard work of those people behind me, the technology and equipment on this location that have changed the game for America.
So again, this is really important. You're coming up on November. Probably the biggest liability Republicans have is the economy, the price of gas, the price of everything, inflation. That's what's giving all of this ammunition to Democrats and to their socialist wing, of course. EPA is also heavily involved in this effort to lower the prices at the pump, get inflation under control. Under Lee Zeldin, no longer a climate-obsessed agency, Zeldin announcing recently a temporary emergency fuel waiver that'll increase U.S. gas supplies and reduce costs as well. And the EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin joins us now. Good to have you back on, sir. So gas at $4.10. Obviously, we're trying to get that down, and there's a lot of incentives to do so. How quickly do you think it's going to happen? People are waiting to see, because I know that all this work's being done and a lot of changes are being made. The price still lingers up there above $4.
Well, we just signed off on this waiver on the Reed vapor pressure on E10. What does that mean? As you go through the year, blends change. There's a summer blend, there's a winter blend, and usually the winter blend season starts on September 16th. We're moving it up to September 1st. And you might say, well, what does 15 days do? Well, the good news is every single day, hundreds of thousands of barrels of oil will increase in the domestic supply. And you'll able to see the benefits of that, too, with gas prices going down. This is one of many actions that we've been taking at EPA, not just recently, but since President Trump was sworn back in office, to unleash energy dominance. This is just the latest step of the tools that are in our toolkit to do our part, to show that, prove that you can both protect the environment and grow the economy.
Yeah. As far as Secretary Besant's plan to try and also help in this process of bringing energy prices down by going after Iran, using the Treasury. No more bombs, at least not for now. Let's use the Treasury to do this. How optimistic are you about how effective that could be?
I mean, it's crippling for the economy, for these leaders in Iran. They already inherited a bad situation when they took over in recent months. Now it's only getting worse. So it really adds a whole other level of pressure. President Trump understands the different instruments of national power, one of them being the economic pressure, and Secretary Besant's doing a fantastic job taking his full inventory of tools available to him and unleashing it very effectively.
Is there any timeline that the White House expects us to see, oil getting back down into the $60, $70 range?
That's something that, I would defer. I don't want to speak for the White House on it. And I've been focused on EPA equities, primarily just making sure that I'm doing my part to help increase the domestic supply. And we've been doing that, as well as also doing our part to bring down gas prices. So we've been focused on the EPA stuff. There are some experts over at the White House that I would defer to on that one.
Winter blend coming in what, 6 days instead of in about 20 days. So that should help absolutely. I want to talk AI with you before I let you go. More specifically, these data centers, if we can move along here. There's a big push, mostly from the left, I would say, to have the construction of these data centers halted. We're seeing it in some cases on the right as well. But you've had Kathy Hochul, governor of New York, Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania, Greg Abbott in Texas, all signing what effectively sound like, in different ways, anti-data center legislation. This is a story that I've been following a lot because I see this as the future, and everybody has this phone. Everybody's on this thing all the time, and if you don't have the centers to be able to make these things move, and how many of them are needed just to send a text message would blow people's mind. If we don't have these here, we're giving ourselves up to a huge vulnerability in the future. And I want you to speak to, the idea that these are so bad, that they're so toxic in so many different ways, is all based off, I think, old information about what data centers were perhaps 30, 40 years ago. The new ones are very efficient, and that's what we're trying to build in this country right now. As the EPA administrators, speak to that.
Rob, you understand a lot of important aspects of it, and one of which is the reality that there are people who are going on their phone to go on social media to say that we shouldn't have any data centers. It's like, do you realize how important data centers are for that phone, for that post that you just sent out to the world? Most Americans want to see the United States win this race to be the AI capital of the world. There are questions that they ask with regards to data centers. They want to make sure that a data center is built, that the costs on their energy bills go down, not up. That's a good ask. President Trump's ratepayer protection pledge, which has been very successful in getting a lot of hyperscalers and others to sign on to, does just that. Also, when these data centers get built, a lot of them now are doing behind-the-meter work. They're generating their own energy. They are a net provider onto the grid, not a net taker. And the other piece that we hear about is on water use. Well, data centers, as you pointed out, have come along so far. Many of them use these closed-loop systems. It's 100% recyclable water. We're very focused on that as well. So you have these important questions that get asked. But what we shouldn't do is just say, well, China, you win. Let's just stop building new data centers anywhere in the country. Let's ignore the fact that each one's $1 billion into tens of billions of dollars. In many of these cases, a lot of jobs. And so many of these boxes are checked on both bringing energy costs down, being a net provider onto the grid, and being responsible users of water.
Yeah, and it's not just AI either. I mean, this is just your phone. You want to be able to use the internet. You want to be able to text people. You got to have these things. It's part of life. So you can't have it both ways. You're going to be anti-data center. You better just throw your phone away and go back to 1995 and see how that works for you. It's pretty basic stuff, and it's scary that a lot of people don't seem to understand that this is critical infrastructure in this day and age. This is just like having power today. You got to have these things. We just have to figure out where to put them. The EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin, we appreciate you. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, the incredible drop in fentanyl deaths under President Trump. Tens of thousands of lives saved, as it is now undeniable that Biden's open border experiment killed loads and loads of Americans. That's up next.
It's our America. We built it. Courage, freedom. Millions go to Newsmax when they need to know. Start today on the free Newsmax app. Newsmax is real news for real people.
You might take something for your heart or your joints. So why wouldn't you take something for the most important part of you, your brain? Prevagen for your brain.
Hi, I'm Karan. I've been taking Prevagen for 4 years now. I noticed a significant change. I feel confident.
Prevagen for your brain. Every day presents a new opportunity for you to take care of your brain. Supplement your good brain habits with Prevagen. Prevagen for your brain.
Hey, I'm Dr. Drew. Our cells oxidize, and fatty 15 reduces that risk. C15 is the longevity nutrient. I take this nutrient. My family takes the nutrients. You should too. Fatty 15 has benefits that people actually see and feel.
This is the story of Rachel and her dog, Bella. Bella needed surgery. The medical bills piled up. And suddenly, Rachel's debt was a wall between everything that they loved to do together. Accredited Debt Relief built a plan she could actually manage with one lower monthly payment, giving her a way out. Then give you a clear path forward, too. Get your free consultation today.
Today's AI capabilities can make your head spin, but for scammers, it's the ultimate tool. They're using AI to exploit tech gaps and slip past traditional security. PCmatic keeps your information private and devices safe with online security solutions developed in America to protect Americans. Built for homes, businesses, and government agencies. Secure 5 devices for just $50 for your first year. Get online protection at PCmatic.com.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Melissa, and together we set out to make the world's best fitting t-shirt.
Our Fresh Clean tees were made to offer a flattering fit for all body types, be ridiculously soft and comfortable, and not break the bank. Unleash your confidence at freshcleanthreads.com.
Most people call leaf filter when their gutters are clogged and they notice one of the many issues that can bring. You can get ahead of costly damage by protecting your home's gutters today.
Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
Where's the admission desk at your hospital? You may need it sooner than you think. It's the middle of the night and you, your spouse, or your child is sick, high fever, can't keep anything down, and getting worse. Now you're waiting in the ER, and everyone gets seen before you. And when I finally see you and order prescriptions, you still have to wait for your pharmacy to open and hope they have what I prescribed. This is the medical emergency kit. It's stocked with essential medications, including amoxicillin, generic Z-Pak, and ivermectin. Now you have the right medications when you need them. And it's why I and so many of my colleagues have medical emergency kits. It's like having an urgent care and pharmacy in your home. Just fill out a brief online medical intake and your kit, prescribed by a licensed provider, is shipped to your door. Here's how to order.
Order your kit now and save $45. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news. That's urgentcarekit.com/news.
Welcome back. Some pretty amazing news to report here. News you're not going to hear most places. Fentanyl deaths in this country have absolutely plummeted under this president and the now sealed southern border. According to CDC, 2025 deaths fell from nearly 49,000 down to 38,000. That's a 22% drop. More than 10,000 lives saved last year. Of course, the media couldn't care about 10,000 Americans not dying of drug overdoses. It's not the kind of story that's interesting to them, but you're going to hear about anti-ICE insurrectionists Alex Priddy and Renee Good for years and years to come. But the total overdose deaths dropping from over 81,000 to nearly 70,000, a 14% decline. And then if you go back even further, overdose deaths were more than 100,000 in 2024 as Biden sealed the border furiously to try and neutralize the Trump threat after blowing it up for 3 years. It all came closed because the threat of Trump winning the election and then Trump coming in and actually sealing the border itself. So this process actually started when he decided to run for president and they realized the liability of what they had done to our border. In a recent Portland, Oregon operation, the feds arresting more than 100 criminals and charging them for selling fentanyl, seizing 100 kilograms of the stuff, enough to kill 50 million Americans. This is the work. This is the thankless work of actually running a government properly, right? These are the things that are done that don't even get media attention. You save thousands, tens of thousands of lives. Where's the headline? Nowhere. Mark Morgan ran the Border Patrol under President Trump. Kari Lake also with us from border state Arizona. Good to have you both here. Mark, it's an amazing story. It's an amazing story of how many forgotten and never thought about people are not dead because we actually have a sensible border.
Yeah, Rob, look, we should be, regardless of what political aisle you rest, we should be celebrating these numbers. But I do want to caution, before we put the mission accomplishment flag in the ground, a lot still remains to be done. Yeah. The cartels are still alive and well. They're still mass producing fentanyl and other synthetic drugs. They're still trafficking heroin and cocaine, which actually has gone up. But here's why the positive, here's why I think we're moving in the right direction under this administration is because since day one, they've understood that this issue is a complex issue with respect to drugs in this country, and the solution needs a complex, multifaceted solution. Meaning, they support education awareness programs, they support addiction rehabilitation program, they support giving EMS, whether it's paramedics or local law enforcement, life-saving tools like Narcan. All those things have happened. But to your point, because we know a lot of people die from fentanyl, they're not addicts, is that we have to do what? We have to secure the border. And that's one of the big things that I have with the Biden administration. For 4 years, they lied to us, Rob. They told us that we can open our borders up to illegal aliens, but somehow close it to illegal drugs. No. That's an absurd proposition. No. And that's what this president has understood. Look, the border's not completely secure, but we're moving in the right direction because of this president.
Yeah, that's well said. Kari, a lot of the video we just used, as Mark was talking, was from your home state, Arizona. How different does Arizona feel with a sealed border?
It's night and day. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when people were pouring across the border by the hundreds every day in Arizona alone, sometimes across the entire southern border by the thousands a day. You know, you don't think that drugs are pouring across and cartels are running drugs. There were actually cartel shootouts on the border in Arizona just a couple of years ago. And this administration has taken an all-hands-on-deck approach, securing the border. A stray cat cannot get through that border right now without this administration knowing about it. They've gone after the narco-terrorists, whether it be at the border, whether it be at sea when they're trying to bring these drugs into our country, whether going after these shipments from, frankly, from China with the precursors for making fentanyl. It's all hands on deck, and that's why we're seeing these numbers go down. We have a class of human beings, of individuals in America called angel parents who've lost their kids and they're never coming back. And I think with President Trump, we're going to see those numbers fall even more.
And rightly so. One more for you guys before I let you go. The State Department, Mark, pausing all processing of immigrant visas worldwide. Moratorium with no timetable, pausing all the visas applications. Administration claiming it's to train visa officers on the new public charge rule that ensures immigrants coming here are not going to be a financial burden to the American taxpayer, which rightly so. They're actually forcing this, and this is part of immigration into this country. You can't come here if you're going to be on welfare. But just days ago, we had an activist judge, I should say, appointed by Joe Biden, blocking the State Department from freezing visas for 75 countries that were deemed a national security threat. She screamed racism on it, wondering if this more broad pause was just a way to get around her ruling, Mark.
You know, I don't know, but I support this 100%. It's the right thing. It's long overdue, Rob. We know there's been visa fraud for decade after decade. And quite frankly, I was disappointed in the recent Supreme Court decision on birth tourism. So I think this is also going to be a way to address that, because what the Supreme Court said, someone can intentionally lie on a visa application, commit a crime with the sole intent of coming to the United States to have a kid and then return to their country. But yet the Supreme Court says, oh, that kid is still a U.S. citizen. That's absurd. I mean, we have no choice. After the fact, there's nothing we can do. So by training these individuals before, it's a preventative measure. So it's actually going to be able to prevent a lot of fraud that we know is going on.
Absolutely. And Kari, you had a hand in helping the administration craft that visa moratorium. Go ahead. I got 20 seconds left.
Well, I have seen so much abuse of it. I don't know if I had a hand in it, but I completely support it. We can't have someone coming in saying, oh, I'm a tourist, and then they get here and one day into the country, they're saying, I want to seek asylum and stay forever. We need honesty, and we expect people to be honest. I would never go to another country, lie on a visa application, and then try to stay forever. And we expect that kind of honesty from people coming in. I'm glad that we're reforming this system and making it honest again. That's how it should be. It is a privilege to come into this country, not a right, and we're going to make sure that people are following the law.
And enforcing the public charge rule instead of adopting the entire world, the entire third world. Mark Morgan, Kari Lake, good to see you both. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
$40 trillion in debt this country sits. Billionaire investor Stanley Druckenmiller slamming the Treasury Secretary. We're going to talk about this coming up next.
When you're in the news business, it never stops. News is always breaking, and it's my job to get you the news, no spin, no BS. If you don't believe us, just watch us.
Watch Finnerty, weeknights, only on Newsmax.
While this banana may not save you from someone breaking into your home, Berna's banana helped one vet repel an intruder in his.
This huge guy, 6'5", 6'6", just barreled through my front door. I have my Byrna and my Glock. I always go for the Byrna first. I've seen enough death and destruction to last 2 lifetimes. Here is the perfect item I can have, feel totally safe, and know I'm not going to kill anybody.
At Byrna, we don't sell bananas, we sell peace of mind.
The grind catches up with everyone, even me. That's why I trust Cunol Ultra High Absorption Turmeric to support my joint health. It's the #1 doctor-recommended form of turmeric that helps you keep doing the things you love at every age. Cunol, the brand I trust.
At Bright Star Care, our nurse-led care anticipates needs before they are voiced. We'll be there.
Attention! Do you owe money to the IRS? If you owe $10,000 or more, you must hear this message because new Trump-era tax policy changes are providing relief to the American taxpayer. IRS policy changes in 2025 and 2026 have created new ways to resolve debt. Tax Relief Helpers knows exactly how to navigate them and could help you save thousands. Just call 800-357-9528 to protect your assets, home, and retirement.
I owed $87,000 in taxes. Tax Relief Helpers got the amount I owed down to just $3,500. I saved $83,500.
I got behind on my taxes and I owed $48,000. I called, and after they told me about the changes at the IRS, they got my bill fully removed.
We save Americans millions of dollars in tax debt every year, and we can help you. Call right now to take advantage of the latest Trump-era tax deductions to protect your assets, home, and retirement from the IRS. The call and consult are absolutely free. Call 800-357-9528. That's 800-357-9528. Attention! Do you owe money to the IRS? If you owe $10,000 or more, you must hear this message because new Trump-era tax policy changes are providing relief to the American taxpayer. IRS policy changes in 2025 and 2026 have created new ways to resolve debt. Tax Relief Helpers knows exactly how to navigate them and could help you save thousands. Just call 800-357-9528 to protect your assets, home, and retirement.
I owed $87,000 in taxes. Tax Relief Helpers got the amount I owed down to just $3,500. I saved $83,500.
I got behind on my taxes and I owed $48,000. I called, and after they told me about the changes at the IRS, they got my bill fully removed.
We save Americans millions of dollars in tax debt every year, and we can help you. Call right now to take advantage of the latest Trump-era tax deductions to protect your assets, home, and retirement from the IRS. The call and consult are absolutely free. Call 800-357-9528. That's 800-357-9528.
You think carefully about what fuels your body.
The way you move, the food you eat.
Aquasana water filters reduce contaminants, delivering cleaner, healthier water.
When your water is better, everything it touches is too.
Now up to 55% off at aquasana.com.
All right, welcome back. So the country is now more than $40 trillion in debt, and it does start to feel like there's really no way out of this, or at least nobody interested in pulling us out of this. The 30-year Treasury bond yield is now at its highest point in nearly 2 decades. Now, what is that? That is a market-driven warning light that should not be ignored. In an effort to lower that yield, the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, is planning a bond buyback, pouring billions of dollars into this idea. It's an idea that has infuriated billionaire investor Stanley Druckenmiller, one of the smartest people in the country, who told Bessent in a recent op-ed that he should let the bond market speak, warning rising interest rates are a signal of trouble ahead. Artificially suppressing them heightens the danger. Saying the long-term Treasury yield is the most important price in the world when it comes to entitlements, Druckenmiller writes, neither party will run on entitlement reform. Both have spent the past decade expanding commitments while ignoring arithmetic. Anyone who tells you entitlements won't be cut is lying, not about the outcome, but about who decides it. All right, we're going to bring in Trish Regan to talk about this. You know, it's not Scott Bessent's fault that this country cannot stop spending $7.5 trillion a year. No. What's your reaction to the criticism of him from a pretty big name in that world?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's completely out of control, right, Rob? I mean, we are spending so much. You look at the entitlements that we've got, all this legacy stuff that we've been saddled with. I mean, without a doubt, that has got to stop. Like, and I think that everything that we were just talking about the border, everything that we're doing on the border, for example, we're trying to control that. You look at Marco Rubio in the State Department today saying, hey, we need to like revamp how we're thinking about bringing people in on immigrant visas. If you can't take care of yourself, we don't want to be saddled with that.
Totally.
We need to take that seriously because ultimately we just can't keep spending like this. It's surreal when you think about the $40 trillion.
But how do they do that? I mean, we have now gotten so comfortable. We used to spend 5.5 a year, then COVID hit, and then we jumped up to 7.5. And that number, that's such a massive expansion of money being spent. Who the hell's going to take that down? Nobody will run on cutting the government. Nobody's running on that.
Right. Nobody. Yeah. Look, I mean, I think Bush tried it, right? He wanted to just privatize Social Security accounts, which, by the way, would have been fantastic. Everybody would have had a heck of a lot more money than they would have in Social Security had they done that. But everybody freaked out. Everybody was scared. So I get it. This is not popular territory. Not popular at all. The minute you talk about scaling back on entitlements, people freak out.
But Druckenmiller says it's going to happen. It's going to happen one way or the other. Either we're going to do it the right way, or we're going to take a huge hit. Or you're going to grow your way
out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, look, here's the plus side. I mean, I actually, didn't he use AI, by the way, to write that thing?
Yeah,
I mean,
but he's still a smart guy.
Amazing, right?
Yeah.
And the productivity gains that you're going to gain from that are really serious. And I think the fact that you didn't see the Treasury market completely implode, right, or Treasury yields totally spike up. We're just around 5.18% right now on the yield on the 30 years. So that's not completely crazy. I mean, 5%, right, given where inflation is right now. It has actually, in June, it came down. And it just ticked a little bit higher in July. I think inflation, they're doing a lot to manage that. And then the other reality is you've got all this growth still on the equity side of the market, right? So you look at the S&P and it's just been on fire despite all of these other concerns.
I love the idea of growing our way out of it. I don't know that that's plausible. This country has got to figure out a way to slow down spending.
I don't think listen, you're not going to, you are going to have growth in the market that's going to be real and meaningful from all of this AI. I am very bullish on the market. I'm very bullish on America.
Trish,
I think that you got to get the spending under control.
I love that. Out of time. Trish Regan, good to see you. Thanks. So I know we could talk about this all day. Good to see you, Trish.
I know.
Thanks so much. All right. Pennsylvania's governor blames Bobby Kennedy for 2 measles deaths in his state.
The rhetoric that's coming from this administration are having a negative impact.
I'm an advocate for student well-being. When it comes to understanding mental health, we've made great strides. But young people today are experiencing an unprecedented mental health and well-being challenge. The reasons are complex. Maybe it's academic pressure, or economic stress, or social isolation, or something else. As students, we're trying our best. So are our parents. But if we are going to improve youth mental health, we need a comprehensive approach that looks at all our sources of stress and is informed by us, the students. Get involved today at EmpowerOurFutureCoalition.com.
Clients who rolled over their IRAs 2 or 3 years ago have doubled and tripled their retirement accounts. Billionaire Eric Sprott disclosed he has invested 98% of his $3 billion fortune into gold and silver, and said gold's going to $10,000 an ounce. Vanguard and Goldman warned of a lost decade ahead for stocks. Gold's role isn't to make you rich. It's to help you survive what's coming. Aren't these supposed to be your golden years? Call Patriot Gold Group at 1-800-778-4156. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer nationwide. Home of the America 250 no-fee for life IRA. Call now and see how easy it is to protect your IRA with physical gold and silver. Call now, 1-800-778-4156.
LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points per second and quickly alerts you to identity threats you could miss, like changes to your investment accounts, home title, and loans opened in your name, right on your phone. LifeLock. Join today.
Millions of Americans rely on a statin to reduce cholesterol, but statins can deplete CoQ10 levels. I recommend Cunol CoQ10 with 3 times better absorption and the #1 cardiologist recommended form. It helps replenish what statins deplete. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Hi, I'm Mike Hammond with Signal Relief. If your back bothers you day after day, you know it doesn't just affect your back. It changes how you stand, walk, sleep, and how you feel about yourself. Maybe you smile through the grandkids' game, the grocery store, the yard work, or the family trip, quietly counting the minutes until you must sit down, or maybe you just miss those moments altogether. I know how frustrating it is when your body starts making decisions for you. And that's why I'm proud to introduce Signal Core, our new back support system built specifically for everyday backaches. More technology means more relief, and Signal Core has twice the technology as the original patch, and it comes with our money-back guarantee. It's targeted drug-free back support that you can wear through the day. Try Signal Core today by going to signalrelief.com and order your Signal Core.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. Soros-backed Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner saying this about Trump's ballroom.
And I'm going to have a paperweight sitting on my desk. You know what that paperweight's going to be? It's going to be a piece of the ballroom after we all blow it up. That's what it's going to be. In an official ceremony, we're going to blow it up, and we're going to get the taxpayers their money back by selling all the pieces as paperweights, and I will have one on my desk.
Rest assured, the Philadelphia DA is in fact an idiot. I mean, I guess we're not supposed to take that as just the latest threat to a president that seems to have an assassination attempt every few weeks. Nicely done. Larry Krasner in Philadelphia, the only place he could ever get elected. Next up, Pennsylvania's governor says 2 of his elderly residents have died of measles, the first such deaths in the state in 35 years. Both unvaccinated residents of Lancaster County. If you know the state, that's a lot of Amish country in those parts. You know the Amish. Rhino Senator Bill Cassidy blaming Bobby Kennedy and the Trump administration, saying misguided misinformation policies are leaving children unprotected against a disease we know how to prevent. The governor saying that he told Secretary Kennedy on the phone that his vaccine comments are the problem, which started a social media battle between the two, with Kennedy now saying he's dubious of the entire story. The health secretary citing a statement from the Lancaster County commissioner that Lancaster cannot find any measles deaths in their county. Take a listen.
According to a statement that was released by the Lancaster County Commissioner today, they cannot find any measles deaths in Lancaster County. And they complain that the governor will not give them that information. The CDC tried to get that information from the governor yesterday, and the state is refusing to cooperate. We're trying to figure out whether, who those deaths were and whether they actually happened, and we can't figure that out yet.
It's a very interesting little back and forth here. And if we want to talk about measles, again, you know this, let's talk about the 20 million illegals from the third world that Democrats let into our country over 4 years. And let's also be honest about Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, a place where the vaccination rates are nowhere near the rest of the country because of a large Amish population. Seems like it's a lot of politics as usual. We'll wait and see what the truth is. And finally, a CNN Democrat says black voters are furious over the Supreme Court's reversal of the Voting Rights Act, which created those black majority districts to vote in. That was unconstitutional, right? She says they're so mad, and that's why they're voting more after the VRA was removed, which Democrats screamed was Jim Crow. It's a pretty funny one. Take a listen.
There are black voters who are extremely frustrated with the Supreme Court and its continuing deterioration of the Voting Rights Act.
Black voters voting at higher rates than ever before right now if the Voting Rights Act is being undermined.
Because black voters are very frustrated at Republicans for their
So they lost the VRA to the Supreme Court, and they said, oh, it'll be terrible. Black voters voting even more. What's the answer to that? Oh, it's because they're really angry about it. Okay. Coming up, one of the craziest disasters we have ever seen. More of this next.
Closed captioning brought to you by MagnaLife Pain and Inflammation Relief Roll-On.
Your muscle and joint inflammation is real. Here's what real customers are saying about MagnaLife Pain and Inflammation Relief Roll-On. It worked great.
Available at your local retailer.
Hey, I'm Dr. Drupinski. I've been looking at the aging process for a long time. Fatty 15 actually slows it down. Fatty 15 comes out of Navy dolphin research. Without the C15, our cells become fragile and age and oxidize. This pushes that back. That's why I take Fatty 15.
While this banana may not save you from someone breaking into your home, Berna's banana helped one vet repel an intruder in his.
This huge guy, 6'5", 6'6", just barreled through my front door. I have my Berna and my Glock. I always go for the Berna first. I've seen enough death and destruction to last 2 lifetimes. Here is the perfect item I can have, feel totally safe, and know I'm not going to kill anybody.
At Berna, we don't sell bananas, we sell peace of mind.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Melissa, and together we set out to make the world's best fitting t-shirt.
Our Fresh Clean tees were made to offer a flattering fit for all body types, be ridiculously soft and comfortable, and not break the bank. Unleash your confidence at freshcleanthreads.com.
Kibble. It's been the standard for decades, and it's failing our dogs. That's why we created Badlands Ranch Superfood Complete. It's gently air-dried, locking in the nutrients and the flavor dogs go wild for. Visit your local pet food retailer today.
There's a reason the wealthy don't keep all their money in one place. We work hard our entire lives to build wealth for retirement. If your retirement dropped 30% tomorrow, would you be ready? Or would you just have to wait and hope it comes back? The last thing any of us wants is to watch our retirement accounts shrink every time Wall Street panics, the dollar drops, or global uncertainty rises. That's why so many successful Americans turn to gold to help protect their retirement. And Preserve Gold is the only precious metals company I trust and recommend. Let me be frank, gold is not for everybody. And I do not give financial advice, but I do urge you to get my free wealth protection guide from Preserve Gold and learn about a special offer to receive up to $20,000 in free gold and silver. Education is power.
Text Newsmax to 50505.
Paul Revere here. I fully endorse Rapid Radios. They are the only nationwide walkie-talkies without any monthly fees. Now I know what you're thinking. I've got a cell phone. Cell phones are notoriously unreliable during emergencies and when you're in the middle of nowhere. Plus, Rapid Radios are great for emergency preparedness and for keeping in touch with your loved ones.
Hey, Pa. Over.
You make me so proud, son. Over.
Get up to 60% off today, plus free shipping at rapidradios.com.
Hydration or creatine? Most people think they have to choose, but you don't. Get electrolytes to help replenish what you lose through sweat, plus 5 grams of creatine to help support strength, power, and recovery. 2 supplements, 1 stick, 1 less thing to think about.
All right, finally tonight, some of the wildest footage we have ever seen as you just watch an entire town get wiped away. This is the border of China and Nepal. And this village eventually is going to just disappear right before your eyes. An earthquake knocked a mountain glacier loose above it. That glacier was essentially the dam for a mass of melted water, a glacial lake. And when that glacier went, that water came pouring down that mountain. There's no way to know the death toll at this point, but the town just disappears in a matter of a minute or so. Rob Finnerty, I've never seen anything like that, and it's so well captured on video. It's just surreal.
Yeah, your heart breaks for those families. Many Americans there
47,
as
I think,
well.
missing at this point. The numbers are going to shoot up. They have no idea right now.
K2, Everest. I mean, it's the ceiling of the world out there. So when something like this happens, my goodness, I hope they can rescue as many people as possible. Rob, we'll do it again tomorrow. Finnerty starts right now.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.